Hi, Katie and Kat back to talk about this week's mindset, which is going to be intuition. So,
Yes.
Katie, you're going to get to do questions today, which I'm super excited about. But before we start, I'll kick us off with our Amethyst mindfulness affirmation card. So, talking a little bit more about this stone and why it represents intuition, it says the amethyst stone with its stunning purple hues is symbolic of protection from negative influences by trusting your intuition. It can represent a north compass and provide peace, reminding you of your inner power. Amethyst can inspire you to achieve your dreams by trusting your intuition to provide guided answers. So, not only is intuition super fun to talk about, but it is also a gorgeous stone. And I know like that deep purple is so easy to recognize, which is actually why I'm pretty sure it's also one of our most popular stones that I feel like we use in a lot of our designs. So, kick us off today, Katie, with your thoughts around intuition. So, I'm going to start by asking you, how does intuition influence your decision making?
This one is so hard. I feel like intuition is something that's, at least for me, kind of harder to come by. There's like some trust involved with intuition that I think about a lot. Trusting myself and okay, is that really what I need to do? Or am I just having these anxious thoughts?
Yes.
Or is this really me? Is this my intuition? Or is this something else that is just flooding my thoughts and blocking out what I actually need to do? So when it comes to decision making, I tend to take a little bit longer to make a decision sometimes, just because I really want to make sure that what I do is what I need to do. And so I think lately I've been focusing on more trying to trust myself and listen to what is this really. And the more that I do listen to myself, the easier it is to hear that going forward, I think. And so what I've tried to do is just, is it good? Is this something that would be okay to try? And if it wasn't my intuition, I did it anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but it's really something that I do have to practice and just try it.
Yeah.
It's just move forward. And if it's wrong, it's wrong and you go from there. But
I know. And that's even like that word choice is such an interesting, because I feel like that's how we're so wired. And I'm like, maybe it is. Like, maybe it is. There are wrong decisions, but I'm like, I don't know if there are. I don't know. It's just such an interesting concept. I remember I ran across this quote recently. It was along the lines of, life is art, so you can't get it wrong. Meaning, like, when someone goes, like, there's going to be so many different interpretations of art. I think Wes even talks about this sometimes, like in the art collection, but no, like one person sees a piece of art and they love it. And then another person is like, I would never pay anything for that, let alone millions of dollars. But some people do, because it's all so subjective. And so I think with life, it's like where that, is this the right, is this the wrong? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe, but also maybe not. But I still feel anxious, like I don't want to make the wrong choice. And so listening to your intuition is so hard. So I think if you can kind of just like maybe step out of that a little bit more.
Maybe it's just a course change.
Yeah.
It's not wrong. It's not right. It's just, you're just doing your best.
Yeah. You're just on the journey, learning as you go.
Yeah.
For sure. So how do you feel like you can develop intuition?
Just practice. I think some self-reflection sometimes is helpful. I think looking back on experiences maybe is a little bit more powerful to me to kind of understand my intuition a little bit more, rather than being in the moment and trying to make a decision or trying to feel my intuition. It's learning from past experiences that might be more helpful and seeing, oh yeah, no, I think that really was my intuition. And okay, that's what that felt like. Now I'm going to try to remember that for present circumstances.
Yeah. Again, and we've kind of talked about that, but that same concept of like having that moment where you're just like remembering like what that feels like in your body and around kind of like your space. Like, okay, I'm setting the intention today to focus on my intuition. And again, I love that this happens to be also one of our most popular stones. It's in a lot of our pieces because I do think that is so important for people to learn to develop. And even now, like me as a mom, and again, like I love my parents. I am so grateful. Like we have a wonderful relationship, which at the end of the day, like we're all going to cause our kids trauma and mess them up. And my parents were not perfect. And I have weird things that I'm like working through from that. But I do feel like because I just like kind of like my personal backstory a little bit is I was raised in a very strong kind of like religious belief home, which in a lot of ways was beautiful. And I had a very happy, safe, felt loved kind of like childhood. But because of that, I feel like I didn't quite develop my own intuition because it was less like, oh, well, what do you think is right? And it was more like, oh, this is what's right because this is what this organization is teaching us that we believe in. And so therefore, like these are the answers, you know? And if you just follow this pattern and this rule, then you'll be fine and you'll be great. And again, I'm a very big proponent of religions and all different religions, like whatever, organized, not organized, like whatever works for you in your life. That's like where I've landed. It's like, do it, follow your own intuition of, am I supposed to be a part of this group? Am I not? Like, follow whatever that is telling you. But this is something like a trait that I'm trying so hard to just develop that muscle a little more because I just feel like I didn't have as much opportunities. And so now me as a mom, like sometimes I almost worry, I'm like, am I putting too much? Is that unrealistic to put on a child to just be like, she's like, Mom, what should I do? And I'm like, well, what does your heart tell you? Do that, you know? And again, there's obviously like, I make sure she's always like, it's, you know, a safety concern thing or something like that. I'll try to kind of lead and guide, but I try because of that, like in my personal kind of experience with that, I actually try hard to make sure my girls are strengthening that muscle kind of at an early age and they're learning and being like, oh, well, I followed this, I didn't follow, like, you know, and just trying to like hear their own intuition a little bit more.
I love that. What a good mom.
Yes. I think, yes, every way, if you're a mom, you're good at it because I think we're all just way too hard on ourselves. So
doing your best.
You're doing your best. All right. Can you think of any other ways that you kind of like develop intuition or you've seen other people like do that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think seeing other people, I'm sure, I think we're like our own worst critics for sure. So maybe I'm better at it than I think I am. But I love seeing it in other people where they just live so freely and you just know that they are living their truth and they do what they think is right regardless of what anybody thinks. And that's so empowering to see that, and I admire that in other people.
Yeah.
And it's something that I want to strengthen in my own life. But it is fun to see that, you know, maybe you just need to stop caring about what other people think, and then you'd start to kind of listen to what you think a little bit more.
Yeah, I love that. I'm so glad you brought that up because I do think, me personally, I believe that that is an important part of tapping into your intuition a little more, is letting go of the worry about what other people are going to think. That's such a good point.
Other people's thoughts, the shoulds,
yes,
this is what you need to do. I'm glad that you're happy doing that, but maybe not for me.
Yes. Yes. Have you ever experienced a time where you questioned your intuition?
Every day. Every day. Yeah, I think every day there's just little things that I don't know. And I think a lot of it has to do with anxiety. I'm very anxiety. I don't like to say, okay, this is something I'm working on, but what you vocalize is what is your reality. And that's what your brain takes as truth. So I'm working on, I catch myself a few times saying like, no, that's not actually me.
Yeah.
But I sometimes tend to be more anxious. It's been something that I'm working on for a very long time. But now I forgot what I was even saying.
We're talking about, when you question it and.
Yeah, so tend to be a little bit more anxious sometimes, and not like in the past. In the past, it was way worse. But it's interesting to just look back and see how many things have stopped me because of this anxiety. Like what I have stopped myself from doing because I was so anxious, and different experiences that I missed out on. And my husband is a big believer in you can't just not do something because you're scared or because you're anxious or because whatever may be stopping you, you just have to do it. And so I think there are definitely times where I maybe missed out on some fun or missed out on some meeting really cool people just because I was so stuck in my head. And so I think going forward, I mean, I want to work on my intuition, and I've gotten a lot better at it. And you just suck it up and you just say, you know what, no, like I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be happy about it and feel good knowing that like I had this thought, so I'm going to act on it.
Yeah.
And maybe it's uncomfortable at first, but I think, I mean, it's got to get easier as you go and as you practice it. So
I could totally see why that's hard for you. And I think so many people, we can relate to that because like, and I think the kind of like anxiety is a really great example of that. It's like, well, it's like, where again are these lines of like, okay, well, this is also my self-care. And it's like pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone, but then also still honoring your truth and what you need and how you're going to feel fulfilled and satisfied and recharged. And so it's like that. So there's that tug of war because like your brain is telling you, well, if you do this, then this is going to happen. So you should do this. And so it's like, what is like, do I lean into this feeling of like, okay, like, again, we'll just kind of go with this kind of anxious meeting people scenario. Like, all right, there's this thing, this event happening. I'm feeling anxious about that. So does that mean I should go? Or again, we're using even the word should, but it's like, what is most aligned for me? Is it to push myself to have this experience and do this? Or is my alignment actually not doing that? And that's okay.
Right. Well, and I think there's something to be said about, like, I think we're all just blessed with this ability in life to kind of have like a little safety mechanism where maybe your intuition isn't about something positive, but it's maybe a protection for, I really don't think that this is what I need to do. And it sounds like a fear and it sounds like anxiety, but maybe it really is your intuition. This is not where you need to be right now.
Yes.
And we talked about this. We talked about the tornado in the last episode, but like you just didn't feel like you wanted to go camping, and then there was a tornado, and so you were at home safe and you didn't stay. Like you talked about that being some intuition, like that's a real thing. So how do you balance the positive intuition and listening to, like, intuition isn't just positive things, I think.
Exactly.
It's like a protection also.
Yeah, for sure. And I think
it's
that's why I'm like,
and listen to.
That's what, like, it literally, like, it talks about this on the affirmation card, but it says the amethyst stone with its stunning purple hues is symbolic of protection from negative influences by trusting your intuition. So I'm really glad though that you brought up that tornado, and I think we'll probably kind of wrap up on this point. But when that happened, it's like I actually had several family members that stayed, and there was one of them did pull back and go home. And so I'm like, I'm not sure that that's because, again, everyone's journey is so different. I don't think everything is not like this black and white, like, oh, if you stayed camping when the tornado happened, you weren't following your intuition because otherwise you would have gone home and been safe. Like, I don't think it works that way. And again, like, maybe yes, maybe no, but I think it is also possible. It's like, and like maybe they felt like they should still stay and they would be okay, or even if they weren't again, thankfully, they all were still okay. They again had some, drama with tents and collapsing and huge rain and water and having to just navigate all of that. So it wasn't like it was necessarily like a pleasant experience. And even if they weren't, though, I feel like there's so much learning and growth that happens sometimes in our trials. And just exactly like what you said, just because maybe something bad or negative happens in your life, I don't know if that necessarily means you weren't following your intuition. Like maybe, and maybe sometimes, but even that in and of itself is like a learning moment where you didn't follow your intuition. And you're right, like something negative did come from that, but guess what? You identified it and you learned from it. So maybe now in the future, you'll be better at something that could have, had an even more negative impact. So at the end, again, it's like, is there right or wrong answers? Like the people that stayed, like I bet they did learn from that experience or have like their own huge just shifts and moments. And, that's why it's like, it's not just like a one size fits all, like this was the correct answer and you didn't get it right. You know what I mean?
True.
So yeah, I just think that's really interesting. All right. Well, do you have any other thoughts on intuition before we go?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
Otherwise, well, I think then go ahead. Do you want to do our affirmation for intuition, and we'll leave it with that?
Yes. So our affirmation for this week in this stone is I allow my intuition to guide me.
So we hope you guys can tap into your intuition this week a little bit more. And we'll be here next week for another episode on mindfulness and those attributes that we can kind of cultivate.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for joining. Bye.